Ever felt that little spark? Maybe an idea, a story, something you want to share, and then straight away think, could I actually stand up and say this? Make it connect.
Yeah, that feeling. It's pretty universal, isn't it? Thinking about taking that leap, speaking with, well, purpose.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today, those first thoughts, the basics, for anyone considering stepping into, a speaking role.
And our main source here is Robert Little's Reimagining Preaching and Leading Worship. But honestly, don't let the preaching part maybe put you off if that's not your world. The
Right.
core stuff we're looking at, like, should you even do it? What's the groundwork? It's super relevant for anyone wanting to share something meaningful anywhere, really.
Totally. This chapter zeroed in on that big question, is this actually for me? And for everyone listening, folks who want the insights without wading through tons of theory,
Yeah.
think of this as getting right to the heart of it. The essential stuff for public speaking, leadership, but without getting totally overwhelmed.
So the mission today is pretty clear. Let's unpack those first crucial questions. What do you need to think about before you even start down that path of sharing your voice? Build that foundation.
Okay, let's jump in then. That very first hurdle, the one that pops up right away, is just, should I do this? Robert Little mentions some, pretty understandable reasons why we hesitate.
Oh, absolutely. There's just, staying put, it's comfortable,
Yeah.
inertia, or maybe apathy, and definitely that fear of what if people are critical?
Yeah, the audience factor.
And just the sheer effort involved, preparing something worthwhile, it takes time and energy. That's real.
But then there's the flip side the book talks about.
Yeah.
That kind of pull, a feeling like you should speak up. It mentions Isaiah, whom shall I send and who will go for us? That sort of prompting.
And that connects to the Dr. Martin Stephen quote, right?
Oh,
The greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing.
hits home, doesn't it?
It really does. It pushes against that inertia, that fear. It's about maybe saying, okay, here I am, send me, even if it feels like a big risk.
Which brings us neatly to something we're all masters of, procrastination. Funny how we can be so good at putting things off, even important things.
Huh. It's a very human skill, isn't it? The book itself apparently took years to actually come together.
Really?
Yeah. Shows that even creative-driven people can get bogged down. Often, like the author found, it takes that external pressure, like a deadline, to make it happen.
Oh, I feel that. It's like knowing you have to give that presentation next week. Suddenly you find the focus, right? That pressure actually helps.
Exactly. It's a catalyst. Okay, so the book talks about the call. Now, in a religious sense, that often means, feeling God's prompting.
Sure.
But it can be broader, too. It might be other people, colleagues, mentors, friends, seeing potential in you, saying, hey, you're good at this.
The author actually says his own call wasn't some big internal drama. It was other people pointing it out to him.
Which is interesting, isn't it? It wasn't like a lightning bolt moment, more like external validation. Makes you think how often others spot our potential before we do.
Yeah. And that first go, that initial experience speaking or leading, it seems really key. If it goes okay and you get some encouragement.
It builds confidence. It gives you something to work with. A positive start helps you develop those skills.
It reminds me of that Richie Benaud quote about cricket captaincy.
Yeah.
He said 90% luck, 10% skill.
But
But don't even try it if you don't have the 10% skill.
exactly. It's a great parallel. Luck, circumstances, they matter. But you still need that baseline aptitude, whether it's cricket or speaking. You can't just wing it completely.
Now, this next bit is interesting. Home or away. The idea that maybe starting out somewhere less familiar could be beneficial.
Yeah, the thinking is, if you're not under the watchful eyes of, say, your family or your home church, people who know you really well,
Less pressure.
potentially less pressure, maybe more freedom to stumble a bit. The author himself started preaching away from his home base.
He mentions making those early mistakes where the personal stakes felt a bit lower, like a practice ground almost. Have you found that trying new things away from the usual crowd feels easier sometimes?
It can, definitely. Less history, fewer expectations maybe. But, the book also gives huge credit to people who do start right in their home community. That takes serious guts.
That for sure.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads to this next point, which is actually quite reassuring. You're probably not going to be great at first.
Yes. The book is blunt about it. Your first speech, first podcast, first whatever. Likely not good.
It's kind of freeing to hear that acknowledged.
Totally. We see the polished final product, right? We forget the messy drafts.
Yeah.
But you simply can't get to the 100th attempt or the 1000th where you're actually good without going through those first few awkward ones.
So the message is, Ditch the perfectionism, embrace the learning curve, and just start. Every try gets you closer.
And to help structure that journey, the book brings in Kipling's 6 honest serving men. What, why, when, how, where, and who.
Ah, the classics.
Yeah, simple questions, but really powerful for thinking through any new venture, especially speaking.
Okay, let's tackle what. What do you actually talk about? The book makes a strong distinction here between preachers and, say, entertainers.
Right. It argues the main job isn't just to keep people amused. For preachers, the core content is God's word, something seen as enduring, not just light relief. It points to scripture like Isaiah 40 to back that up.
And it warns against just sticking to the easy bits, the crowd pleasers, like Jesus teaching his disciples the deeper stuff after the crowds just wanted miracles.
The idea is you got to share the whole message, even the bits that might challenge people, or you.
So how do you ensure you cover the breadth?
Well, it suggests things like using a lectionary, maybe preaching through whole books of the Bible over time, or even just tracking your themes to see what you might be missing, and asking for guidance, of course.
And making sure it connects to today, right? Not just ancient history, but relevant now.
Absolutely. Okay, next. Why? Why do this? The book really emphasizes feeling that genuine call, that confidence that it's what you're meant to do. Ezekiel's calling is used as an example.
It suggests that if that call is real, it's actually pretty hard to shake off. Trying to ignore it doesn't usually end well. Like Paul in 1 Corinthians, feeling compelled to preach. Ever felt that kind of unavoidable pull towards something?
It's a strong feeling when it happens, and the speaker's role here is framed as being a messenger, faithfully delivering something, not changing it.
Like John the Baptist preparing the way, or Paul being an ambassador, you're representing something bigger than yourself.
Exactly. Now, how do you actually preach or speak? It mentions homiletics.
Fancy word.
Yeah, basically the art and technique of preparing and delivering sermons, applying rhetoric to preaching.
Does it get into specific methods?
It briefly lists 4 types: expository, textual, topical, narrative, and points to a website for more detail if people are curious.
But are there general principles for any kind of speaking?
Definitely. One big one is having a plan, a goal, knowing what you want to achieve, even roughly, before you start.
Makes sense.
And that story about Harold Macmillan in Parliament is great. Start with one point, maybe build up to 3 related points as you get more experienced. Focus is key. Don't try to cover everything.
Good advice. Keep it tight.
And if you are working from source material, like the Bible for preachers, your talk needs to be clearly rooted in that, illuminating it, not just using it as a vague jumping off point.
Okay, what about when? When do you speak? This seems relevant for people who aren't doing it full time.
Right. Lay speakers, itinerant preachers. The old expectation might have been, say yes to every invitation.
Which is tough with modern life.
Exactly. So the current advice mentioned from a group of Baptist preachers is more realistic. Take on what feels manageable, what allows you enough time to prepare well alongside everything else you've got going on, finding that balance.
Sustainable pacing. Makes sense. Okay, who? Who is a preacher or speaker? What are the characteristics?
First off, a real sense of the weight, the reality of the subject matter. Deep conviction.
Like those visions Isaiah and Ezekiel had, something profound.
Yes. And alongside that, a sense of your own limitations, knowing you need support, you can't do it alone.
Humility.
And responsibility. The idea of internalizing the message first, like Ezekiel eating the scroll. You have to live it, understand it deeply before you share it.
That's powerful. What else?
Courage, but tempered with humility and genuine care for the audience, like Jeremiah or Samuel.
A tricky balance.
Also, being willing to keep learning, being guided by your source material, staying focused on the core truths, not getting sidetracked.
Yeah, and really wanting to understand your audience, right? Connect with their world.
Yeah.
Like Ezekiel living among the exiles.
Yes, that connection is vital. Regular contact, understanding their context.
So then the book asks, what characterizes your ministry speaking? Using Paul in 2 Corinthians as a kind of model.
Yeah, looking at what marks out genuine service. Things like boasting in the message, not yourself. Seeing the work happen through you, not just by you. Focusing on that core message, feeling guided by something bigger.
Those feel like really solid principles for anyone trying to communicate something important, whatever the context. Makes you think about your own motivations.
Definitely. And that leads into the final section. 6 principles for those who speak. Number 1, keep learning.
Always be growing yourself if you want your speaking to grow.
Exactly. Personal growth feeds public communication. Sharpening skills, deepening understanding, looking after your inner life.
Makes sense. What's number 2?
Practice what you preach. Or advocate. Integrity. Your life needs to line up with your words. Paul is big on this.
Credibility comes from consistency. Okay, 3.
Consider your destiny, your long-term impact. Avoid short-sighted choices that mess up the bigger picture. Think Esau selling his birthright versus David's long game.
Think long term. 4.
The ABC, attitude, busyness, and complexes. Being aware of insecurities.
The stuff that trips us up.
Yeah. And managing busyness so you don't neglect your inner life, your real purpose. Staying grounded.
Important. Number 5.
Spiritual discipline, or maybe just personal reflection. Making time for silence, introspection, to really know yourself and your message, like Jesus taking time alone.
Carving out that quiet space.
I don't know.
And the last one, 6.
Keep in touch with your churches or your network, your audience, the people who value what you do. Build those relationships. Show you're still connected and offering something worthwhile.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, a few things really stand out for me. That initial step of just asking why you feel drawn to speak.
Yeah, the intention behind it.
And then the commitment to keep learning, keep developing. It's not a one-and-done thing.
Never is. And maybe that self-awareness piece, too. Knowing your strengths, weaknesses, motivations.
Definitely. And even though the source was about preaching, these seem like really valuable touchstones for anyone wanting to communicate something that matters. A good starting point.
For sure. It gives you a solid framework for thinking it through purposefully.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. If that first crucial step is just to start, even if it's not perfect,
Yeah.
what's one small first attempt you could make this week in an area where you've maybe been holding back your voice?
Good question to ponder. Until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep learning.